How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Emerald City Hockey Postgame Live. Another tough one, another rough loss, another controversial penalty in this one. I'm sure we're going to talk about on here. Can't imagine we won't. And just yeah, I mean, it's just another late season Kraken game from this team, right? I mean, getting shut out, struggling to get shots on the board, struggling to look dangerous offensively, but great goaltending on the back end, right? Like this is a very, very Kraken game, a very, very season 3 Kraken game. This was pretty prototypical for that. Yeah, they don't get any easier, even though we're 70 something games into the season. They don't get that much easier. They just don't. But I want to thank everybody for joining. Of course, I want to thank Flatstick Pub for sponsoring this post game live like they have. Throw up the graphic for that live watch party at their South Lake Union location that we'll be doing on April 5th. I will be there. You can watch that game against the Ducks. It should be a good one, especially after those last couple games we played against them. Lots of stuff kind of left up in the air to be resolved once that game comes around on April 5th. And I hope to see as many of you as possible at Flatstick Pub for it. All right. So, yeah, I guess, I mean, I'll wait until somebody brings it up and maybe for some more people to join before we get into the Adam Larson call, maybe. And I'll just kick things off at this Hoppa chat here with Houdini for Celebrini continues. Keep stacking L's, Kraken. Names on there. Yes. That's the silver lining, right? Like once we knew they were out of the playoff race, the silver lining is all of these games, if they're going to pick up the W, I mean, if they're not going to pick up the W, you just help your draft position. There's something. We get something out of it, right? And that's where we're at. CJ with the UG. It was kind of an UG game, wasn't it? George, was it just me or did Forsland and Eddie want to talk about anything other than hockey tonight, lol? That's been the last couple games, hasn't it? Right? Like up until the third period stuff, the Zegras stuff kind of kicked off in that second Ducks game. I mean, that first Ducks game there was very little hockey talked about. This one, very little hockey talked about. I think look, they're both obviously great at their job, and they are entertaining. So we've got that. But I think there is something to, again, you're watching a team that isn't eliminated, but in essence is eliminated. And to be fair, the Kraken aren't giving them much to work with on a nightly basis either. So I think that's kind of where they're at. And they're both probably starting to gear up also for their playoff work for the national broadcasting teams as well. So I'm sure that's kind of taking away some of their focus. Well, Joey was good. Kidline was good. Bjorky, Evans, and Schultz helped Joey out with some nice saves. The tank is back on, baby. Yes, it is. And when was the last time you saw 3 skaters save goals the way that they did in this game? I mean, just straight up. Obviously, the Bjorkstrand one is like next level, the way he just slid in cross crease like that to make that stop. But like, wow, they really came up big in this one. They absolutely did. I see Julia with, well, hey, at least we had some great saves by our 3 goalies, Joey, Riker, and Bjorky. Yes, it was a team effort to keep the Stars off the board for as long as they could tonight. Right. And they did a really good job of that. I mean, Dallas came out early. They were pressuring them hard. Kraken defense, Kraken goaltending did an outstanding job of keeping this game close. Unfortunately, the offense just wasn't able to kind of pull their weight in this one. Lindsay, yay for tanking, but a goal would have been nice. Yes, it would have. Next year, though, I think the Kraken have lost their Saturday home game privileges, literally lost every single one this year. RIP. And Sam with the what do Kraken and Solomon Grundy have in common? Both of them die on a Saturday. Incredible reference, Sam. I totally get the reference. Wonderful. I love it. And yeah, no way. It can't play on Saturdays. That is definitely true. Can't do that at all. Zoe, what's the likelihood of a suspension in y'all's opinion? Okay, so we'll talk about the Adam Larson thing now then. I would be very surprised if there was a suspension. I'm probably more okay than most with the fact that it was turned into a 5-minute major and that he was given the game misconduct, just because I think the headshots, that's the one thing that I take super, super seriously, and that I do tend to err on the side of go ahead and be tougher on the punishment for, versus other misconducts, and other penalties. And I say that for a couple of reasons. The biggest one for me personally, though, was, and this was really on that one replay from the other side that they really only showed after the refs had made their call on it. And I understand that they did not play this replay in CPA during the game. So if you attended the game, you have not seen this replay. But even the overhead replay kind of shows this. Chris Tanev's head goes from looking to his right to then elbow. All of a sudden, his head is 180 degrees the other direction, looking the other way. To me, that's significant enough contact to warrant it being upgraded from the boarding call to an elbowing call, given the 5-minute major and given the game misconduct. That's my personal preference or opinion. Like I said, this is something that I've always been pretty consistent about, and I'm always going to give you guys my honest take. That's my honest take on it. I understand, though, that at the same time, it was pretty soft, right? That is probably the softest 5-minute major elbowing call you're ever going to see. I am totally willing to admit that. It was not as blatant, as brutal, as violent as really all of the other ones that we have witnessed. But for me personally, the fact that it does twist, it causes Tanev's head to go 180 degrees in the other direction, means that it was significant contact enough to warrant the more aggressive penalty there. At the same time, though, because it was so soft and it was not as blatant, as obvious, as open ice, as violent as so many others, I personally wouldn't then give Larson any additional discipline. I wouldn't give him a suspension moving forward. I could understand, though, if the league is going to. Obviously, they were talking with the refs there, and they all felt like it was enough to warrant what it ended up warranting. But I think because they gave him the game misconduct, because they gave the major, I don't think they will give a suspension. I wouldn't give a suspension, but I was okay with the call that they ended up going with. And I will hop down towards the bottom of chat to see how everybody's feeling with that after reading this this big super chat here from Christian. I really appreciate this. Stars fan here, but listen in sometimes. And you and RJ do great work here. Was disappointed in what I saw from the Kraken tonight compared to last season. Played a simple and bland game from my perspective. You're not wrong. The Kraken have been struggling as of late. They have not been able to kind of put together that effort that they were able to put together last season, especially in that playoff series against you guys. I mean, that series was fantastic, back and forth hockey. You got to see our goaltending. You got to see some of the defense that we could play. But yes, the offense, especially right now for the Kraken, unfortunately just has not been there, as you could probably tell with them averaging 6 shots on goal per period in this one. So yes, I thank you very much for watching us, for following along. Thank you very much for the super chat. It was a fantastic series, playing against you all last season. That fan base was incredible. The way that they, came into our chats. I'm sure you were one of them, and hung out with us through that game. We had great discussions, and the team did a great job taking care of me too while I was visiting for those away games as well. So thank you very much for that. There, Christian, I'm going to go ahead and come on down here and see if people maybe were agreeing or disagreeing with what I talked about there, with the Adam Larson call. Let's see. I'm seeing a couple of things about taking it, bringing in other people. Michael, agree that's just not an acceptable hit, whether from a Kraken player or anyone else, regardless of intent. Totally fine with the call after seeing the last angle from Bryce. On Onslaught, I thought 2 minutes would have been fine. Based on my text conversations with RJ, that's maybe his viewpoint too. Obviously, we'll hear from him in a little bit. But again, I don't know that he saw that other replay either. B, agreed, Dylan. First replay they showed made it look like nothing, but the ones they showed after the review made it clear that he did actually elbow him. Yeah, that was kind of the weird thing. And Bryce, doesn't mean it was intentional or malicious, but still should be called. Absolutely. Right. Like, it's one of those, for me, elbow to the head. Like I said, if you're gonna cause somebody's head to turn 180 degrees, it's a call. Whether, I obviously don't think he meant it. I think there's an argument to be made that Larson was just trying to brace himself as he's going into the boards there, because obviously he does enough to try to avoid taking a boarding call on Chris Tanev there, right? Like he is not going through Chris Tanev. He's not trying to follow through. He doesn't even really follow through with the elbow either. It's not like he flares it out ridiculously or really throws into it and really tries to drive his head through the boards. I think there is an argument to be made that he is just trying to throw up his forearm to brace himself going into the glass there, but it doesn't matter, right? You have to be responsible for your body and your stick at all times. That's just the ruling. That's the way all the penalties work. So that's where we're at. Edward, softer than Mama Bear's bed. That is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I did like that one. Coop, I don't try to analyze or understand NHL refs or players' safety, so speculation is impossible. But I had no problem with the injection. Okay, all right. Well, based on Twitter, I didn't know what the overall sentiment was going to be in this one. So I'm this is good. This is good. Let's see. Amazon again, very interested at what the Matty contract ends up looking like. It's gonna be a bridge deal. There's no way it's not a bridge deal based on the way he's played this year. He can't demand big money over a long-term deal. And if you're the Kraken, you're not gonna want to commit anything big money on a long-term deal until you have some more data points, because right now you've got a really good season and you've got a season that was underwhelming. And so that to me just screams bridge deal opportunity, where you sign him for 2-3 years at a medium cap hit, and then you see where he's at the end of that. And I think that's probably best for both sides right now. Edward Dillon's Twitter handle was highly appropriate tonight, yelling at the ref. This was the most I feel like we've heard CPA get on the refs. I will say that. Michael, seems like Evans needs to give lessons to the rest of the defenders on how to move the puck out of our defensive zone. I'm with you, Michael. Evans does this so well. It's one of the things that I always would talk about whenever I'd go see a Coachella Valley Firebirds game, was Riker Evans' either ability to skate the puck out of the defensive zone and then up ice, transition through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, or the stretch passes, right? He makes such great stretch passes. He can get it from back deep in the Kraken zone all the way out and try to hit somebody as they're entering the offensive zone. Nobody else on the Kraken really seems to play that way. That was something that Carson Soucy did. And when he left, I don't feel like the Kraken were ever really able to replace that. And I think Riker Evans is the first time that we've seen somebody replace that. Adam Larson can throw together a stretch pass every so often, but it's not a regular part of his game. And then, yeah, Alexiak's not going to do it. Will Borgen's not going to do it. Justin Schultz should be able to do it, but I think he's been kind of playing a little bit more conservative, and it's starting to pay off too. I thought he had a good game tonight. Let's see, Bjorkstrand for E-Bug. Yes, Angela, for sure. Bjorkstrand is our new emergency goaltender. Looks like he's got the skills for it, for sure. Lindsay, the kids plus Riker Evans were precious angels that tried their best. The rest of the team, blah. That kids line is doing a lot of work, and I think it is sending the message, because I will say this was the best that I felt like the rest of the Kraken had played in a while. Again, it still wasn't good enough. Six shots on goal per period is not good enough. It's just not. Oh, it's been downgraded, by the way, as I'm on NHL's website. It had updated, so they finished with only 17 shots on goal. Before it said 18. So less than 6 shots on goal per period is just not good enough. But I do feel like they played with a little bit more energy in this one, a little bit more fire. And I do think that is from bringing up Ryan Winterton and Logan Morrison and having guys like that in the lineup. I know Hackstall walked back and said that wasn't to send a message, but the bottom line is they're playing fiery, and the rest of the team is playing with a little bit more fire and passion since those guys have been there. I think even if you didn't mean it to be a wake-up call, which I don't see how you couldn't, it had that effect anyway, right? It is still sending a message. Those vets in the room are still seeing that happen and going, okay, I better pick it up here, right? Like there's still other guys at Coachella Valley that they could call up and maybe replace me with if they wanted to, right? They could still bring up Shane Wright or Cameron Hughes or John Hayden or somebody if they wanted to. I better get going here. So I think we're there. Let's see, get some more people in here talking about the tank. And yes, that is where we're at, and this certainly helps the tank, that is for sure. How about those Mariners from Stratic? Did they end up winning that game? I know last I saw was the last update Root had. Oy, oy, oy. Lindsay, I really hope Lars's Iron Man streak doesn't end due to suspension. Ooh, I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good thought, Lindsay. Now I really hope and don't want it to be a suspension. Like I said, I don't think it will be, but that would really really stink. That would absolutely suck. No question about it. Um, oh, Mariners won. Okay, awesome, great, awesome. That is good to know. Good to know. There's that. There was at least that. That is good. B, to me, it looked accidental. Definitely the right call for it to be a major, but I don't know if it would be a suspension. Don't think Lars has a history of bad hits, so maybe if anything, it'll just be a fine. Yeah, it could fine. I think is appropriate. I'm with you. I don't think, especially now that they made the window for priors like 2 seasons or 18 months or something very short. Lars hasn't had anything like that since he's been a Kraken, which would be the window they're looking at. So, yeah, I can't imagine that would play into it at all. Let's see. But we looked so good against the Ducks from AK. Cue clown music. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, we had a floor, and that floor is higher than the Ducks ceiling, but it is definitely below anything that the Stars have. That is for sure. Nicole, the Stars play so well and hard. I wish to see the Kraken play like that one day, be able to watch games and be confident in them. I mean, I feel like we did last year, right? I mean, we took that team to a game 7 in the second round. I mean, it was a really hard fought playoff series. It was a great playoff series. It was great hockey. I think the fact that we've got, some Stars fans returning to post game from it speaks to the level of play that the two teams had last year. It's just that it's never felt farther away than it does right now, right? When the Kraken played that way and they were good, and we could believe that they could score 6 in a game 6 to send it to a 7th game. The Kraken for a team that is like 85% that same team, it's remarkable how different they look here a year later. It's kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of sad, just straight up. I'll use the word. Rock Todd, all for the taking, but effort was good. Why not pull a goalie for a 6-on-4 with 5 minutes left down 2? It's a good question, Rock Todd. I'm in favor of it. The analytics say you should. That's enough for me. But we know Dave Hackstall is very, very conservative when it comes to pulling the goaltender. It's just he's been consistent with it. To be honest, I was surprised he pulled Joey for the faceoff with 250 left, 249 left. I honestly thought he was going to wait for the faceoff to see if they won the faceoff before pulling Joey Decord. So I was just happy that he pulled him before the faceoff was taken, because that felt like a little bit of growth for me and him kind of going a little bit more for it. But I absolutely understand where you're coming from. Rock Todd there. I'm right there with you. Some more love for Bjorkstrand there. Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Let's see, Jake. So, Dylan, what do you think about picking up Jesse Pulkkinen in the second round? I haven't done. I'm still just trying to work my way through the first half of the first round right now in all of my scouting stuff for the draft. I'll be able to dig more into that kind of stuff once the Kraken season ends, especially because I had the trip last week. I have the trip coming up at the end of this upcoming week. It's just taking up a ton of my time working on that stuff and all the Kraken stuff on top of trying to do the scouting. So I can't give you a solid answer right now, Jake. That's one to check back in with me in about a month. That's I'm just being honest with you. When we're talking about guys that far down. But I can also look into it, and then maybe I'll look into him specifically, and then actually you can ask me in a next game or something, and I'll hopefully be able to give you an answer. Leo, it's nice to be able to watch a good defense, even just show the work ours has had to do. That's true, right? Like, again, this was a better game from the Kraken, even though it wasn't good enough, even though there is the significant problems out there. This was still just a better effort level than we have seen from them in a while, and I'm still really pumped about that. That still is exciting for me. Let's see. The free Adam Larson from Jessica for sure. I know. Cool. Dylan, what do you think about taking a swing at trading for Patrick Laine in the offseason? I don't think he's ever been on a team that wasn't toxic. Yeah, situations do he just seem to be unfortunately lucky in that situation, in that regard, doesn't he? I'm fine with that. I like Patrick Laine as a player. I think I'd want to see if they would retain some salary, or how much it was realistically going to take to get him. But the bottom line is he can score, and he's a good dude. I know he had to step away this year for the mental health reasons and stuff. I'm fine with that. That doesn't, worry me at all about bringing him in, just because, like you said, I mean, that's a toxic situation that he's in right now. Just that whole team is kind of in all over the place this year. So yeah, I'm all for potentially bringing in Patrick Laine. Well, let's get RJ to on that, and ask him about it when we can. Let's see. Fusion Mix Stars are my other team, and Larson involved in the 1.5 plays that made my heart rate spike. I may have shouted, "Don't you do it," at the Jamie Benn in my phone when he swerved towards him. Yeah, there's a little bit of restraint there from Jamie Benn. I think he has matured as things have gone on. But yeah, if yeah, I mean, it was a good game for at times. Like, I thought the second period was really solid hockey both ways. That was a good back and forth period, and it was, like I said, just good to see the Kraken play that way. Stratic, Dallas fans a lot better than Colorado fans in Dallas social media. Yes, again, we have had nothing but good experiences with the Dallas Stars fan base here on Emerald City Hockey Post Game Live. So I am all for them. Lindsay, endure a slog for Demidov. Let's just keep them coming, Lindsay. Just keep them coming. I am all for it. And boy, does this feel like a slog these last couple weeks of the season. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Ricky, kid line just over 10 minutes. Never change. Hack Francis, bring him back. He's writing off next year. Look, some of that is because of the special teams usage and stuff, right? Like Ryan Winterton sat in the box for the 5 for Adam Larson. So I think that's partly why the kid line didn't have as much ice time as we maybe would have wanted them to, because you could tell after that he double shifted them late in the third period, like under 10 minutes. He double shifted that line. Hextall knows that is the line bringing the energy and generating a lot of chances for the team, because they're also so solid playing back, especially Ryan Winterton. He really handles a big workload in that transition game, going back, that back checking game. So I think, Ricky, that this game might have been specific because Ryan Winterton was the guy serving in the box. I think they would have had closer to 12 or something, which for a fourth line, that's generous for a fourth line. Now, we could argue that they should be higher than the fourth line, and I'm sure you would. And I would be definitely on board with that. But I think that's the way it is. On Onslaught, 10%, excuse me, of our games shutouts. Yikes. That's scary. I believe it, but that's really scary. It shows that how bad the offensive problems have been this year. And like I said, on the last deep dive we did, you can have issues shooting. You could have some guys with really low shooting percentages for a year. That stuff could be fine. But if that's going to be the case, then no, you got to manufacture goals. You got to work hard for goals. You got to go to the net. You got to go for screens. You got to go for rebounds. You got to really try to grind it out to get a goal or two a game, especially when you've had the defense and the goaltending you've had this year, right? The defense has been iffy at times, but the goaltending has been rock solid all year long. Got to be able to do something to try to handle that kind of stuff. RJ, we were just talking about 10% of the Kraken games this year, they have been shut out.
That's a lot. I didn't realize it was that high a percentage, but I mean, certainly with how things are going now, it's not super surprising to me.
Yes, that is it. How was it there for this one, RJ? I know it got loud after the Larson situation.
Yeah, it did. That really did get the crowd into it for a little while, and then as it kind of became clear the Kraken didn't have much of a chance of tying the game, then it got a little quieter. But yeah, it certainly got the crowd engaged. They were very upset about the call on that one.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on it?
I do, and we did text a little bit during the game, and I was surprised that they kept it at 5 minutes, just because, and maybe you've seen more angles than I have, because I know they didn't show all the angles here in this building. I saw the one that I tweeted and no more. But to me, it looked like, yes, he got the elbow up. Yes, he made some glancing contact with Tanev's head, which that's a penalty. Absolutely black and white, that's a penalty. But, there's levels between a minor and a major. and it seemed like the injury stemmed from Tanev's arm getting bent in a really kind of nasty way.
Mhm.
That's how I saw it. I don't have a huge problem with it being 5. I think you want to be on the safe side certainly with any hits that are that high and do make contact with the head. But I was a little surprised that maybe they didn't move it down to 2, but I don't have a huge problem with the 5.
Yeah, the other angle shows it, and it becomes clear that Tanev's head goes basically he moves Tanev's head 180 degrees, which to me
Okay,
means that's a significant amount of contact.
yeah,
It's
and
not
then
violent, but it was
yeah,
significant.
and then as for that call though, Hackstall of course was asked about it. He didn't
Mhm.
have a comment on it. He said they looked at it, they made their call. I've got no comment. So nothing more from the coach on that one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The one thing that we're all kind of just holding our breath on now, though, is the idea that hopefully he doesn't get suspended and it ends his Kraken Ironman streak.
I did think about that. I don't think he'll be suspended for this one. I mean, again, I thought maybe there was a chance it wouldn't even be 5. I really don't think suspension is warranted here. So I hopefully we don't have to worry about that.
No, it wasn't malicious enough, right? Like
No.
that's the thing. How's it going, Pablo? Afra's here. She's just under the bed, chilling. She's
Oh,
tired. It was a rain day, so she's been all lazy today. Some of the other stuff, I mean, I felt like the energy for the Kraken in this one was a lot better than it had been for the last, little bit, RJ. Even against some of those games against the Ducks, I felt like the Kraken were really out there kind of grinding in this one.
yeah, I thought of those 3 games, I thought the Kraken gave their best effort in this one, even though they didn't win the game. Their opponent was so much better. I liked this game more than I did either of those 2 against the Ducks, which sounds kind of weird given the score. But I agree with you. The effort was there tonight. And I was all ready for it not to be, just given that it's been, what, 7, 8 games, I'd say, that they have not given a good effort, even though they got 2 wins the last couple. I thought they were going to get blown out by Dallas, but no, they came ready to play.
Yeah, no, they hung in there, weren't able to generate a ton offensively, right? Less than 6 shots on goal per period. It's not great, but they were able to do that. And then obviously Joey was big, and the other guys who decided to play goaltender tonight were pretty big too.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that was awesome. Whether Riker Evans first and then Oliver Bjorkstrand afterward, I did get the chance to ask Bjorky about that. He's like, well, I was just kind of in the right spot at the right time. He did play it down a little bit, but I thought it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. B, what hurt me is when the kid line had a great shift in the offensive zone. Somebody drew a penalty, and then the Kraken did less than nothing on the ensuing power play, completely erased the momentum. Boy, how things change when you're not given 10 chances on the power play, RJ.
Yeah, when the other team doesn't just take penalty after penalty, you have to make the most of those opportunities. And the Kraken didn't tonight. And that was one area where Hackstall pointed out that they could have done better in this one. And I completely agree with him there. But he also did really praise the kid line for drawing a penalty. I mean, he's had great things to say about him. Not basically doesn't want to qualify anything they're doing. They're just going out there and playing, and they're being really effective.
Yeah, no, they are. Everybody loves them in here. We had just been kind of talking also right before you had hopped on about the concept of them maybe even getting some more ice time than what they've been getting. I think partly what hurts their ice time in this one was that Ryan Winterton served the major penalty for Adam Larson, so that kind of kept it down. But I did notice that Hextall double shifted them in the second half of the third period in this one. I think that was his kind of nod to them of like, hey, they're generating chances out there.
Yeah, he did, and I like to see it. And that is one thing, though, that Hackstall's been consistent about in his whole time with the Kraken. He's generally rewarded players when they're playing well with a little bit more ice time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really consistent because I thought about this too after this. He's been really consistent at who's in the lineup and what the lines are based directly, exclusively on the result of the game. So, my question for you, RJ, is do you think we see different lines for the next game just because they have lost now? And do you think we see that the kid lines stay together? Or do you think that maybe Winterton and or Logan Morrison will be out of the lineup for the next one just because the team lost a game? Because we have seen that from Hackstall before.
Right. Well, I'd say that if they do make a change, it's to move Winterton or Morrison, maybe Morrison, I'd say, higher up into the lineup and give him another shot because I think he's earned that. I think Hackstall will realize that. Of course, I wouldn't have a problem if he keeps them together, keeping that line
Yeah.
together. It's working. Go for it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the lineup stay the same way. Hackstall really seemed happy with the team's effort tonight, even though the result didn't go their way.
Yeah, yeah. It was just, it's not something I would do. I think they're playing great together, but that was something that crossed my mind watching this game was, well, if Hextall's pretty results driven, and this result will
Yeah.
be different.
Although I will say these games that they've been up, their primary role has been playing against other teams' fourth lines,
Mhm.
and so I wonder if he gives them a little bit of a tougher deployment just to see what they're capable of doing.
That would be nice to see too. I mean, that's you're not gonna make the playoffs, right? Like, even though you're not mathematically eliminated, you're not making the playoffs. This is what we wanted this time to be used for, right? Like we talked about it. So I'm all for that.
Yep.
On Onslaught, is this team worse at 5-on-5 offense than in year one?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm trying to remember. Year one they were pretty darn bad. Oh, actually, though, right now, if you take like the last 10 games or so, yes,
Yeah, that's what
but
I was
not
gonna
as
say.
the season as a whole.
I was gonna say the last 10 games or so, absolutely, they are. I think the difference was year one, they did a little bit more to manufacture goals, right? Like what I've been talking
Yep.
about when I was talking about, I think when you joined, which was I want to see them manufacture goals. You have to when your offense is this bad and you're keeping things low score and going the other way. You got to just try to grind it out and manufacture some goals, and that is what year one the team did because they had to. Um, so in that regard, maybe they were better year one. Let's see. Oh my gosh, Ricky, Seattle has become club med for too many vets.
Oh no.
Maybe a little far, but it's talk to us before the Ducks games. I would have been more on board with that.
Yeah.
Michael, has pulling the goalie ever worked for us? Seems like it just means an empty net goal for the opponent. It worked in November. Actually, it might have been late October this year in Detroit. It worked. I will always point to that one singular game.
Was it last season? The time it worked against Dallas? I feel like it's worked against
Yes,
Dallas
yes,
once
it did work
before.
against Dallas. That is true. That did happen. Was that last year or was that their first game this year?
I don't
I
remember.
don't remember either. But the point is, it has worked at least twice. So there we go. We were actually talking earlier, RJ. I was kind of surprised at how liberal Hackstall was with pulling Joey in this one. I thought he was going to wait to see if they won that face-off.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I'm glad he didn't because again, all the numbers say you should pull the goalie sooner than basically everybody does. And I thought like their showing wasn't too terrible with it. It was a very soft goal that went into the net by the time the puck was
Yeah.
moving so slowly. But again, I don't have a problem. You're down two, you need to pull the goalie.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Stratic, the Kraken had that one game versus the Canucks this season where I felt they played as dominant effort wise as the Stars were tonight. Any others? I mean, there was a couple games where I felt like they did, like that one Chicago game. I think that was the home game against Chicago. I thought the Kraken had a pretty dominant effort in that one. I mean, you could argue for this group, given where they were at, the first Ducks game was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean the Winter Classic.
Yeah, Winter Classic was definitely should be up there, and then the game in Boston,
Mhm.
and arguably the game in Buffalo as well.
Yeah,
I
they've
would
they've had
throw
a
those
few
in.
of those signature wins like that.
Yeah, I would throw those in there. Let's see. We've got some Stars fans, including Joe Mama here. We used to have such competitive games with y'all, but this was just sad. Didn't think you lost that many important players to free agency or anything. What gives? We've been asking ourselves that all year, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the depth scoring that hasn't necessarily been there. You look at. I mean, in a way this looked a lot like one of the playoff games against Dallas. Just felt like a weaker Kraken team, but the same patterns existed, right? The Kraken
Yes.
played pretty solid defensively. They kept it close, and one of the things that was their undoing, I thought, was D zone faceoffs, and that's an area. The Stars are one of the best faceoff teams in the league. The Kraken really struggled in that area, and even from the first period, it was clear they were losing so many D zone draws completely clean. And eventually the Stars were going to draw up some plays and figure out some ways to score off of those. They end up breaking the ice with Wyatt Johnston's there off of a D zone draw, right off the face off on the power play to make it 2-0. I think eventually you give them the puck clean in the offensive zone, they're going to make something out of it.
Definitely. I mean, the Kraken finished 38.6 on the dot, but as Jake is pointing out, Logan Morrison, 54.5%.
He had a couple clutch D zone face-off wins too that I noticed where I was like, "Oh, this is a dangerous situation. Look out!" And Morrison won the face-off. So I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he could even be a good face-off guy for you next season.
Yep. Oh, definitely. I've been loving his game with the Firebirds all year long. You know that. B Maddie Riker and Ty all got on the PK during the major, which was cool. Always like to see them getting opportunities there. Again, I mean that's something that I've been wanting and I've been talking about. That this is the time for that stuff, right? Get some different guys on the penalty kill. You can, right? Like that's the beauty of playing the meaningless hockey that you are playing the rest of the season is that that's fine.
Yeah, you get real life reps against a very good power play, and I thought they generally performed pretty well.
Yeah. Stratic, shout out to Viren for the stats hunting on seasons with big win streaks paired with big losing streaks. ECH Discord equals the best, and Viren is awesome. 1000% agree with you, Stratic. That was fantastic work on the Discord there earlier. That was, I think, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that is good stuff. On the onslaught, kind of answering Joe Mama's question. These guys are either refusing to play Hack's system or his system is so bad nobody even knows how to utilize it. I would just say that the system has constantly been changing. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
We've
there's no
had about
set identity.
three.
We talked about it on the
Yeah.
podcast. It's just they don't know what they want to be as a team.
Yeah, and that's just a problem. So that is an issue, Joe Mama. That's unfortunate. I had a lot of respect for that Kraken team last year. People are saying this year's Dallas team is like last year's Seattle on crack. Lol, what an honor.
Love the Stars fans coming in peace here.
We got a big super chat from a
I
Stars
saw
fan
that.
earlier. It
Yeah, that
was
was
really
great.
cool. Really, really cool for sure. Let's see. Viren, Ryan Winterton for PK, not box proxy. I'm totally on board with that because I think Ryan Winterton would crush it on the PK. Actually, didn't we see him earlier this year when him and Shane were called up? I think he got a little bit of PK time. Or am
Very
I?
brief. Am I wrong about that, or was it a tiny bit of no? Because Shane would have been the power play time. I don't
Yeah,
know. He
I'm gonna
can
look
do
it
it.
up. Yeah, he can absolutely do it. He does it for the Firebirds because maybe I'm just confusing it with a lot of the Firebirds that I've watched this year. But he is a great penalty killer. I
Mhm.
mean, he's just so solid back checking. I'm trying to pull it up, but I'll give you a question you can answer
Although,
while I
yeah,
finish
I
looking it up.
understand also putting a guy like that. You kind of pick the lowest guy on the totem pole, like to just serve a penalty like that. So I get
Right.
it.
Yeah, I mean, Sam asking strange as to why he went to the box instead of someone that sees zero PK time. I mean, part of it is this team is mostly like everybody's defensively responsible. Like, I don't know who you would really have thrown in the box because the few guys that you would consider like an Andre Burakovsky, you need him to try to score.
Right. And also, what if the Stars take a penalty and it goes to 4-on-4 and all of a sudden Murky's in the box?
Right. Like that's a problem. Um, so yeah, I get that. B God, I hope he doesn't pull out the line blender again. Make the kid line the third line. Otherwise, you don't need to mess with anything. I really hope he doesn't either, RJ. I don't know. He's done it like every time in the past.
He has, but in this instance, I believe in him, at least as far as the kid line and maybe, with Tolvanen and Beniers. I don't think he's going to make any changes that are too drastic. Maybe I didn't see what the final results were on the McCann, Schwartz, and was it Bjorkstrand or Burakovsky? I forget which guy's there right now. But on that line, their numbers were pretty bad to start the game, and so I wonder if he might tweak that. But I know he's not going to mess with the kid line. I don't
I was
think
gonna say I didn't really like notice that line at all in this game, to be
they
honest. Like
they
they
their
were
numbers were very bad.
non-existent. Ryan Winterton did not have any shorthanded ice time earlier this year, so I just must be thinking about him with the Firebirds. And yeah, no, that line did not do well. I'm looking at Money Puck now, and basically 4-1 in favor of the Stars on
Yeah.
everything for that line. So not great, not great. That is good. Lindsay, only 9 games left after tonight and 2 at home. Savor every moment, good or bad. It's crazy to think that there's only 2 home games left.
I know. I've been thinking a lot about it the last few days. Right. I'm trying to enjoy every bit of being here. That last homestand, I feel, is going to get a little emotional just realizing it's going to be all the way till October
Yeah.
before I can be back here again.
Yep, definitely. Ricky, do like Mini and pull the G in overtime. Got to pull the goalie in overtime. Did you see that, RJ?
Yes, I did. I was actually watching that live. I turned on the game with about 4 minutes to go in regulation, thinking that might be a possibility. So I was very pleased to see it happen. I maybe wasn't pleased with the result, but I don't know. I just thought it was cool that they did that again, and I still like the decision, even though it didn't work out for them.
Yes, definitely. Joe in here asking, Decord's been nasty. How's Grubauer been? Some people talking about how, Grubauer's been better than he's been in the past, for sure there. So that's been good to see. And now asking about Shane Wright. It's fun. This has just been turned into like a Stars Q&A, Stars fans Q&A, post game live here. I mean, I'm trying to think of other stuff because I'm down at the bottom. So feel free to put in like any questions here, everybody. Like I know the game was what it was, but feel
Yeah.
free to throw anything in here. Um, it's I still keep trying to think of like ways for the Kraken to try to find that identity, RJ. And I don't want it to be as like a grinded out manufacture goals team, right? Like a small ball baseball team or something. But I just don't see how like what they're supposed to do otherwise because of the collection of guys that they have, because of how many of them are kind of built to be two-way players. This has been something that I've been thinking about just because we're going to be approaching the off season, who they could potentially bring in because there's probably not going to be that star player, that dynamic player. I'm really trying to figure out what kind of identity this team can build towards.
Right. I mean, well, it's tough when you're built in this odd way, right? Where you have a bunch of contracts right in the middle, and you kind of need the depth to show up every single
Mhm.
time to make it work, and you do need a lot going right for you, as we saw last season. I think a lot of it just depends on who's available and who you can get. I don't think there's a question for you, Dylan. Do you think there's really anything they can do in these last 9 games to build toward that? Because I don't think so.
No. No, it's too late. You don't want it would be kind of a waste of time. I think you use the
Yeah.
last 9 games to, like I said, throw different guys out there on the PK, see what you have there so you know if you can make a move with, say, a Brandon Tanev over the offseason because you've got somebody who can fill in his role. Give the kids time. If you are thinking that you want to really give a serious look to Ryan Winterton and Logan Morrison come next year's training camp and preseason, which I think they should, then yeah, you want to see them in NHL games as much as possible. So I think that's the stuff you focus on, but it's something that I think the coaching staff needs to start already be brainstorming, right? Get
Yeah.
some ideas, start figuring some things out, really take a look at the team while you still can in front of you, right? And try to go from there and start that brainstorming session now, to try to get ahead of it so you can enter training camp ready to go. And free agency potentially as well, right? You want to be able to communicate to the general manager, hey, this is what I think we need to be doing next year. Let's see if we can find
Right,
guys
because
to
there's
do
there's
that.
two decisions they need to make here that I think these 9 games can help them a lot with. Is one, do you bring back a guy like Tomas Tatar just as kind
Yeah.
of veteran depth scoring or whatever, or can a Winterton step into that role, or do you bring in whatever this year's version of Belmar is, a fourth line
Mhm.
center who's a vet who can go and play that role, or do you maybe let a Logan Morrison take
Right.
that and run with it if he does well in camp?
Right, exactly. And so far it's been seeming like the answer to both of those is like, yeah, you can let the young guy do it. I
Yep,
haven't
I'm
really
I'm
noticed a
so on
drop
board with
off.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, at all. Zoe Lars has never had a suspension or fine per earlier question. Thank you, Zoe. And then yes, this was the question earlier, that I said we would wait and get your opinion on it here, that both
Okay.
Cole and Matthew are reminding. And that's the idea of maybe, trying to bring in Patrick Laine this offseason, RJ.
Oh man, I mean,
I did
there's
not
a
put them
lot.
up to this.
I know this sounds like you're doing, Dylan, but I'll trust you that you didn't have anything to do with it. Um, there's a lot off the ice that needs to be sorted out. Assuming that all checks out, I wouldn't mind it. I think it's a great buy low opportunity. Can you remind me what the contract is? Do you know offhand? I feel like you've checked
It's
multiple times.
it's 8.5 is the cap hit. I'll get you the term here in
Yeah, the
just a
term is
second.
really what I'm looking at here. But you look at how little is available in terms of scoring wingers who can really make a difference for you this offseason. I think it's not a bad opportunity. You could probably get him for pennies on the dollar. And I feel like this is an environment where he could potentially thrive.
Yeah,
Um,
it's 8.7 and only 2 years left.
oh, yeah. Yeah, the term doesn't scare me at all then in that case. And yeah, the biggest thing is I think he could potentially thrive here. Just, off the ice, on the ice. I think it's a very supportive room. I think it's a supportive environment, and the fans are going to be behind him 100%. I would like to see it if they can't make a swing for like a Barzal or someone who's kind of
Mhm.
a more bona fide star. I think he's really not a bad backup plan.
Right, and that was part of what was talked about earlier was just the fact that not because of him, but the situations that he keeps finding himself in keep ending up becoming toxic, right?
Right.
Like Columbus certainly multiple times has become a pretty toxic environment around him. That would not be the case in Seattle. Potentially, right? I guess there's the possibility that they start off the year slow next year. Hackstall gets fired. You've got questions about Ron Francis. All of a sudden, things could turn in that direction fairly quickly. But I still think it would probably be a better situation than any of the stuff he's had to go deal with in Columbus.
Yeah, and even if it worst case scenario, the term limits you to 2 years. It's not a disaster. You can work with it.
Yeah. And then I will add this in just because when everybody was talking about Shane Wright, I'll just add in, I think part of the reason why we haven't seen Shane Wright, in addition to the contract and the ALC and all that kind of stuff, has just been because he's taken on such a big leadership role for the Firebirds. I think that's part of the reason why they went ahead and left him there, because it would be, that's what you want to see from him. You want that to kind of grow and continue there. So I think they kind of wanted to leave him there because of the leadership that he's taken on there, and kind of let him continue to cook with that. Don't throw this other curveball of now be low man on the totem pole in Seattle, right, for a handful of games and then get punted right back. Like it, I don't know that they thought that was going to be best for him. Let's see, Coop. I'm not sure if we're avoiding the topic, but I'd like to hear what you all think regarding Hackstall challenging the team, the Ducks games, and now this result. Did they respond? Is it still too early? Well, I will say, Coop, that a lot of that was going to be stuff that I was planning to talk about on the deep dive
Hmm.
for the next podcast. So I don't know that we'll give you a huge in-depth answer here, but I do think that a message was sent, RJ, with the talk of the fans and with the move of bringing up Logan Morrison and Ryan Winterton. I know he said that that was done prior and it wasn't to send a message to anybody, but I'm sorry. You see those guys come up and then you see them play as well as they did. There has to be veterans in that locker room who are thinking, boy, they've still got Shane Wright, Cameron Hughes, John Hayden they could be calling up if they wanted to. There's a lot of guys on that Firebirds team playing well. I could be next if I don't kind of pick it up here.
Right. I think with the call ups, whether or not a message was intentionally sent, I think a message was received by the
Yes.
players, and I guess that's what's most important. But yeah, I do have my opinions on it. Certainly, given what I thought of the effort level of the two Ducks games. But yeah, we can address that in greater detail on the podcast.
And that's on Onslaught. Coop, no, they didn't respond. They just ran into the Ducks. And Coop, I know that. Lol, I just wanted to hear them say it.
Yeah, certainly through those two games. Yeah, that's my take.
It was very nice timing, I will say that. And I do wonder if internally, just because the timing of the moves would say that they weren't trying to necessarily send the message after that Montreal game, I do wonder if they were looking ahead on the schedule and they saw the Ducks games and they thought, if we are going to call some guys up, these would be the games for it. And then because they played so well, you keep them around for the Stars game. They played well again. They get to stay around a little bit longer. That is something that I could find believable.
Yeah, I could believe that, and that's kind of how you want it to work, right? You give them a little bit of an easier start. They prove themselves. They keep playing well, and they stay up as long as they've earned it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Joe, I just can't fathom why they aren't a playoff team with the emergence of Decord. It's weird. Goal scoring.
I know, Dylan, if you had told us before the season, though, just showed us the goaltending numbers and what they would be,
Yeah.
we'd think it was a lot.
Yeah, but turns out when you're the fourth lowest scoring team in the league, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
The three teams below you in goal scoring is Anaheim, Chicago, and San Jose. It's not great company to find yourself in, that's for sure. Kylie, once Larson got ejected, I figured we'd probably lose. Any team that's out both of its top line defensemen is likely to struggle. Yeah, to be fair though, Kraken did a great job kind of surviving that, right? Like you allow the one goal right away on that power play, but then you shut it down for the next 4 minutes and 52 seconds, and you only allow the empty netter later.
Yeah, I thought the Kraken decor handled it really well as you can handle it. And Hackstall was actually asked too about how tough is that when you lose a guy like Adam Larson mid-game, and he said, actually, no, we have the other five guys. It's not, it actually wasn't that big of a challenge. We stepped up and we addressed it, and I agree with him. I think they handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they did. Bryce, I feel like they've answered the Tatar question by keeping him scratched this long. I have to think the 3 forward scratches being pending UFAs isn't a coincidence. I would
Yep.
agree.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. Bryce is on board with bringing in Line. Let's see. Stratic, watch the Kraken sign Corey Perry. That's not what I meant. What I meant, manufacturing and a net front presence guy.
Thankfully, you got the character issues to prevent that from happening, I think.
Yeah, I don't think Ron would be jumping on board with that. Michael with the super chat. Any chance you guys might do a video and break down our ozone entry? As a hockey novice, I would watch that because we don't seem proficient. RJ would have to tackle that one because I think the whole time I'd just be like, what are you doing?
I know. I think you would just give up before the video even really came together. You're like, what is this? I don't know that I could make much more sense of it either. But yeah, I mean, hopefully next season we see more of a defined strategy and system and intent that we can break down, and we can bring that to you.
Remember when they brought in Tatar and like that was gonna be the thing? Like we were so pumped for Tomas Tatar because he was the controlled zone entry machine and he was supposed to bring that to the team, and he did a little bit.
He did. I mean, we broke a few of those down, right? I remember, marking up the video in the intermission. You pulled out the whiteboard. I mean, it was amazing to see. We had someone who had like controlled entries that were planned, and you knew what he was doing. Dylan, why? It's like the power play. Why does it feel like this stuff gets coached out of these guys after they've been here for long enough?
Because it does. Remember the old days, RJ, like season 1 days, back when they would do morning skates at Climate Pledge days. And remember when every morning skate and like half of every single practice this team did was just transition drills?
I remember it so well, Dylan.
Yeah, because you saw one, you saw them all.
Yeah.
But it was just like that was what this team focused on. But as I think back to it, they weren't really transition drills so much as just learn to skate fast through the neutral zone. There was not a lot of plan to those drills. There was no like strategy
No.
to them. It was just carry the puck up ice with speed.
That's really all it was. And I think it was just, I guess the intent was just get to know your teammates and kind of just build that basic passing chemistry because none of them had played together before. But yeah, it was just incredibly basic.
Yeah, and I don't feel like we've seen anything else like that the rest of the time. Like
No.
in years 2 or 3, like they haven't worked on it at least not in front of us at all.
Mm-hmm.
Kalen with the super chat here. I second the request for a breakdown. So we might need to be doing this.
All
RJ.
right.
I
All
will.
right.
My gut.
You already have so much on your plate.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's the other reason you might have to handle it, RJ. Because yeah, my immediate reaction is it's gonna end up just like if you were part of the last prospect chat I did over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, where I looked at Lucas Dragocevic. It would probably be pretty similar, where there's a lot of me shouting, "What are you doing? Why?" Pausing it, pointing where they should be, where they're very much not, and then giving up after 5 minutes because I'm gonna have like an aneurysm if I keep watching.
The more you put it like that, the more doable it sounds, I guess.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If you just want an entertaining breakdown, I guess we could do that. um, let's see, Koopa and add a big body for the power play. That is something that I think they will look for. I do think they're going to look for somebody with size up front, RJ. Like I feel like that is coming in free agency this year.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point on the podcast, kind of in depth about why they need someone like that. I got to think the front office will probably agree with that.
Yeah, via Ren, the idea of re-signing Tatar or a Belmar equivalent makes me want to tear my hair out. I think a lot of us are kind of on board with that idea. Let's see. Would Columbus take back Bjorky plus an asset if we get Line from Sam? I don't know that I would want to give up Bjorkstrand for Line, and I don't know that you'd have to.
Yeah, I don't know that what does Columbus want at this point, right? Because their roster says they maybe should be in go for it mode, but it's clearly not ready yet. I mean, you've got Johnny Gaudreau with that contract. It basically depends on what they'd want. I have to think they'd want more immediate help, though. They might want Bjorkstrand.
Well, yeah, they could want Bjorkstrand, but I also got to think that they understand just the situation with Line has not worked out for them at various times.
Right. But the thing is, you have to compete with teams that I think are willing to offer a really good prospect who's almost ready to play for you. I think that might be what they're looking at, is maybe somebody who's 20, 21 years old, almost ready to break in, who's a pretty promising prospect.
So Logan Morrison or Ryan Winterton?
A higher upside than that. You've got to go
You
higher
think? All
upside
right.
than that.
Well,
Yeah.
what if it's Yanni Gord plus one of those two guys? You get an immediate guy who's going to help push you towards the playoffs and will help you once you're there, and then another guy who's going to be solid for you for a decade.
I think there might be something to that, just because with Gord, it gives them the option to flip him at the deadline if
Yeah.
things go south, because you have 1 year left on the deal.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I'm pretty sure Yanni has trade protection, and if I'm him, I'm not wanting to go to Columbus.
That's fair. That is very fair. That is something that he would probably want to invoke. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with the Kraken, right? Like they can't part with any of their high end prospects because there's just not that many of them.
Yeah,
Right? They're
they do
not
have
in
to
a
be careful about
position.
that.
They're not in a position to do that. Julia with the super chat. I'd watch you two explaining anything, to be honest. I've learned so much from you guys. Thank you, Julia. That is very,
Thank
very
you.
kind. Appreciate that. That does really seriously mean a lot to us. Um, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of like yes, no on the line A stuff here. Edward, outscoring your problems is kind of contingent on actually being able to score. Big difference from last year to this year. Definitely.
Huge.
Um,
Remember when they could just play bad defense and just score 6 or 7 to make up for it?
Yeah, no, that is certainly like part of the case here. It feels like the Kraken treat the puck like hot potato. There's something to that in the offensive zone. They are pretty quick to move it. This team struggles, RJ, with controlling the puck when under pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this with Maddie a lot, but as I've been watching, it really extends to a lot of other guys. Their internal clock for when they need to get rid of the puck and what they feel like is guys encroaching on their time and space, I don't always feel like lines up with what NHL time and space really is. And it's certainly Maddie's the most extreme example, but I feel like some other guys on this team are there too.
Well, how much do you think size factors into that? Because I don't like to usually point to size on those things, but if you know that you're probably going to physically lose a battle, that clock gets shorter. And of course, Matty being the biggest example of that would track given his size.
Okay, but I would point to Kaylor Yamamoto being like the one guy who seems to have the best concept of this.
Yes, but yeah, he's scrappy though. He can win those battles. But I'm looking at the Kraken forwards, and it's not just size, but basically the ability to play physical and shield the puck. And I do think they're lacking there.
I mean, Tolvanen, he's 190, 5'10". Like, is he too small? Because he's one of the other big examples I think of.
Yeah, I mean,
I get, right?
you
They're
have a
not
bunch of
Jordan
guys in that middle
Greenway out
size.
there, but like,
Yeah, yeah.
you can still like it's hockey. It's a contact sport. You're gonna take hits sometimes. Like it's okay if you're gonna make the play, score a goal, and win games, right? Like you want to be in the playoffs. That's what it takes.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying it's good to have the clock be that small, short, but I'm just saying, do you need a personnel change, or at least to bring in someone that can kind of create that space that feels like they can win a battle? Because that's one thing I notice, especially with some of these other teams they play against, the bigger teams, and especially in the D zone, right, where it feels like their players can just hang on to that puck for a long time. They can turn back, they can kind of redouble again because they know they're not going to get knocked off of it immediately. And you just don't see that with the Kraken, I feel like.
No, that is true. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Berkey, 6'3", 210, probably should be able to
Well,
do
I
it.
know, but
Like,
he's scared he's going to get hurt.
well, yeah, and that is viable on his part. I don't know. There's something to having somebody help create that time and space for you, but I think there's also something to it's hockey in the offensive zone. Things are just tight, and there isn't a lot of time and space, and you just at some point have to find a way to become comfortable enough to make the play you need to make. And I think that that's what the Kraken need to be working towards, regardless of whether or not they add somebody with size who can do that for them or not.
Yeah.
Let's see. Michael with the super chat. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, Dylan. I scare our pup Bailey yelling, "Get rid of the effing puck." There you go. Yeah, no, it is an issue. It's It's an issue with them sometimes. And then Light with the super chat, doing my weekly plug for Coachella Valley. They're likely about to get Newman and Drago. Shane is playing out of his mind, and the playoff package is cheap. Yes, I planned on promoting that playoff package once it's up and available. It might actually already be like available as a pre-order there. But yeah, no, Coachella Valley is gonna be lit for this playoff run. And yeah, watching the prospects start to join them, it's gonna be fun, especially because we know Dan will use them.
Yes, he will. I mean, that's the greatest thing too, is to see how they kind of slot in to help with the playoff run. It was so fun last year, and it's going to be great again this year.
Yeah. Sam, I will say if Gord does get moved, our center depth becomes extremely thin, and Shane will be forced into a very big role, which will be good for his development, but will be a tough burden on him. I think he's personally ready for it just because he's thrown into that fire with Coachella Valley this year, and he totally rose to the occasion. So I'm kind of okay if that becomes the case. And you can find centers here within the organization with a guy like Logan Morrison. I'm okay if they go in a little thin at center.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. And also, if you're moving him, you're freeing up cap space to go sign someone in the mid range as a center that can then fill in for you if that's what you need. Go sign another like a Wenberg type, but
I was just
not
gonna
him.
say, you mean like an Alexander Wenberg type player, RJ? Is that who you're talking about there?
Yeah, maybe for a little bit less money, or I guess similar with the cap going up. But yeah, it's someone who is going to slot in below Shane for the medium term or however long they're there on like a 2-year deal. But you have the money to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And then let's see. Also here with Sam, I wonder if Montreal would give up Missar or Owen Beck for Gord. I don't think with just 1 year on his contract, Gord could command that.
No, and they're not ready yet. They're not ready to go for it. Maybe a couple years down the line, but not now.
Yeah. And then I think it would be fair to leave this on a question from Joe, the Stars fan here. How's my boy Alexiak? He was such a good partner for Heiskanen a few years back, but I've heard he's had mixed results with the Kraken. Results have been mixed at times, but largely he's been what the big rig always is, which is pretty solid and dependable for what you need him to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's been very consistent over his time here. He's developed some chemistry with Will Borgen on the other side of that pair. They've been playing together pretty much the entire time since Borgen became a regular. And yeah, he's been fine. I think that some of the same frustrations still exist about maybe wishing he was a little bit more physical with that
Mhm.
frame, but it's just not who he is, and I think he kind of accepted it at that point.
Yeah, but still does a great job blocking shots, playing on the PK and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's still valuable. He uses his reach well. Like all that stuff about him for sure. Want to thank everybody for joining us for this post game. Want to thank everybody for the super chats. Want to thank the Stars fans for coming in and being pretty cool about everything. And of course, want to promote one more time on this post game the Flatstick Pub watch party on April 5th, 7 p.m. at that South Lake Union location. So you can join me and we could watch the Kraken take on the Ducks.
If
I
this
mean,
game didn't make you want to see another Kraken Ducks game instead, I don't know what would.
I was just gonna say we get to go back to playing the Ducks where we know what the Kraken are capable of there, and it'll be a lot of fun. And the other question too will be who knows who's going to be in the lineup for the Kraken too. We might see more changes. We might see more call ups. You never know after something like this. So I'll throw that out there. And then just one more thank you to everybody for watching, and we'll see you all next time.